Hello and welcome. My name is Cramps. The fourth developer stream ahead of Season 13 of Project Diablo 2 has just ended and we got the first patch notes. In this video I'm going over the changes to classes, and tomorrow I'll go over item changes. All changes are tentative and object to change during the beta. We will see a lot of changes during the beta when people actually start testing all these changes, but we'll see. First up, we have the Amazon. The critical strike damage modifier has been increased from 1.5x to 2x. Big buff to every physical Amazon at least. Fend has had its splash bonus fixed. It wasn't working probably earlier, so now it actually applies. So you get 20% extra melee splash radius from your first hit, 40 from your second, and 60 from your third hit. Big increase for mapping at least here. Spear and Javelin Mastery no longer has critical strike. It now has a new affix called Critical Strike Multiplier, which is an additive bonus that goes on top of the base 200% critical strike. So if you have 20% critical strike multiplier on either an item or in your mastery, it will go from 200 to 220%. So flat additive bonus. Valkyries has been nerfed quite a bit. Both the strength and dex scaling is nerfed by a lot. And all the scaling from power strike has also been nerfed. This is somewhat an effect of critical strike being buffed, since Valkyries and decoys both gain damage from critical strike. They needed to be nerfed at least a bit. This seems like a bit more of a nerf than just that. But Summerton has been very strong for a long time. Which is why decoy has also been nerfed by quite a lot. Especially as you see here, the base damage has been reduced from 35 to 50 to 14 to 18, which seems like a very big number change. We'll have to do some testing to find out how significant this is. It looks very significant, on paper at least. Fire arrow has been reworked. Arrows now leave ground fire that deals damage over time when you shoot them. So it's not exactly like immolation arrow, but there will be some ground fire after you hit an enemy. Now, in the second dev stream, we got an announcement about minimum damage on lightning skills being changed. And we now have quite a few of them. And this pertains to the Amazon as well. She has a lot of lightning skills in her Javelin's skill tree. So we're going to see a lot of nerf or buffs to minimum damage. And in this case, we have over all of the leveling, there's some damage scaling that has been increased by a lot. As you see, all of the levels from 8 to 25 or 28 plus in this case were 0 before. Now they actually add some minimum damage. And this goes for Charge Strike, it goes for Lightning Strike, Lightning Bolt, and Lightning Fury. So Lightning Javison, it's gotten a big buff. It's not gonna feel quite as random anymore with the damage you do, as you have at least some minimum damage. It's gonna be very fun to test that out. Cold Arrow has had its synergies reduced from 17 to 15%. This was probably the most played Amazon build last season, and it was extremely strong. I played one on SSF, which was just destroying maps with very basic gear. So this is probably very called for little nerf. Multiple shot has also got a somewhat of a nerf. The base enhanced damage has been reduced from 40 to 30%, and then the enhanced damage per level from 3 to 2%. Bear in mind though that the critical strike has been up by 50%. So this is more to kind of mitigate the extra gain damage from critical strike. This is the second season in a row we have had some nerfs to multiple shot, and like last season, it didn't really seem to affect it. It was still extremely strong, and I suspect it still will be. Guided Arrow has had its base enhanced damage increased from 0 to 25%, so you actually get a damage bonus from using Guided Arrow instead of just regular arrows. Strafe has gotten the same treatment as multiple shot. The base damage has been reduced from 100 to 80%, and level scaling from 15 to 12%. Again, probably not a change that's gonna really affect the damage, since the critical strike is now a lot higher. Evade now no longer has a cap at how much movement speed you can gain from extra levels in it. So as it was before, when you got to 26, it stopped gaining more faster run walk. Now it actually continues, and you get it every level. So very nice little change. It's not like Amazon has the greatest mobility. Assassins also has a lot of lightning skills, and there's a lot of these skills that have been reworked in terms of minimum damage as well. Shockweb has gotten that treatment. Lightning Sentry, Chain Lightning Sentry, and yeah, again, same with the Javison. This is probably a very significant buff that you're gonna feel. You see here, actually, the Chain Lightning Sentry also has a maximum number of chain increase from 7 to 8. So Lightning Assassin is probably a very good starter again. Fire Blast now gains an additional bomb every 3 soft points instead of base levels. And it now caps at a maximum of 9 bombs from 7 earlier. Another great change, especially for early leveling. If you're any kind of a traps in, you most likely will start with Fire Blast unless you're a Blade Sentinel user. So very great little change here, I think. And especially with the additional bomb every 3 soft points is pretty good early on, when you can get some +3 claws and use. Blade Sentinel has had a big change to the AoE on it. The damage from the collision when the actual shuriken explodes has been decreased. And yeah, it's a slight nerf. This is, again, second season in a row Blade Sentinel has gotten a nerf. I tried Blade Sentinel for actually the first time ever in PD2 last season, and it was amazingly strong. I was carving up all the bosses. No issue. The easiest boss I've ever tried. By a mile. Claw and Dagger Mastery has had its critical strike multiplier increased from 1.5 to 2. This is a big damage increase, so Claw and Dagger Mastery already influences Blade Sentinel, as you see above, so maybe Blade Sentinel has not actually been nerfed. We'll have to do a lot of calculations. Shadow, Master, and Warrior now can set traps that no longer belong to the player and are instead owned by the Shadow themselves. As I understand this change, you will be able to have more traps up at any given time. This mostly applies to Blade Sentinel, which will now use the Shadow's weapon for damage. So if you have a summon Blade Sentinel build, the actual summons are not going to do as much damage anymore. Tiger Strike has had its melee splash bonus removed to apply for other skills, so it only applies for Tiger Strike itself. You can no longer pre-buff with Tiger Strike and get the melee splash bonus from there. Dragon Talon has been buffed quite a bit. This is a very interesting change. Came out of the left side for me. Didn't really expect to see this, but the level 1 mana cost has been reduced to a third. So you can actually use it early on now. It only costs 2 mana. And the mana now increases by 0.25 mana every level. That seems fine. Base enhanced damage bonus has been increased from 50 to 60%, and the level scaling has been increased by 5% per level. Synergies has been increased by 3% per level. So a huge buff to Dragon Talon, which isn't the strongest kicker in the game. So maybe it will now actually be decent to go Dragon Talon. Now to the Barbarian. Concentrate and Berserk now has a 20% increased melee splash radius. We have a new skill called Split Throw that throws your main hand weapon and having it split up into multiple projectiles. It starts at 3 projectiles, and at level 10 and 20 you get an additional projectile. So this seems like a very strong build, a one-handed throw build. But again, we're gonna have to do some testing on it. If you haven't seen video of it, Senpai Something has showed it off on stream earlier, so here's a small demonstration. As you see, you throw your weapon, you're running around with a shield in this case, but it splits up into multiple projectiles and it returns to you, and it hits both ways. But we're not done. There's more Barbarian stuff. Frenzy has had the same treatment as Tiger Strike, that the splash bonus now only applies to Frenzy. Other than that, Frenzy now have a static 5-stack max at all levels, so you only need to hit 5 times before having your Frenzy bonuses maxed out, which is an amazing quality of life improvement. And as you don't get the melee splash bonus anymore, there are many builds that won't actually be forced to use Frenzy, which is great. General Mastery has been reworked into one-handed mastery. The base attack rating bonus has been increased by quite a lot, both the base and the level scaling, which is pretty awesome because you can have some attack rating issues on a bossing build on a Barbarian, so great little change. It now applies to any melee weapon when held in one hand, so if you're having two-handed swords, these are counted as one-handed weapons. Now grants a +1% increased melee splash bonus per soft point, up to 20%. And this is kind of, again, one of the changes we've seen. We've seen the melee splash bonus being removed from Frenzy, and in this case it's put on the mastery for the weapons, and we saw them being added to Concentrate and Berserk as well. Critical Strike multiplier has been increased from 1.5 to 2x, like every other build that has Critical Strike. Spear and Polearm Mastery has been reworked into two-handed mastery. It now applies to any melee weapon that is held in 2 hands. The base enhanced damage bonus has been increased from 30 to 45. The leveling has been increased by 5%. It no longer grants Critical Strike, but instead grants Crushing Blow and Crushing Blow efficiency. It also grants an additional melee splash radius. It starts at 20% at level 1, and you get 1 extra per soft point up to 40%. So a lot more splash on two-handers, which is very cool. We will be seeing Barbarians with spears, pole axes, two-handed axes, two-handed maces, and all kinds of good stuff. It's going to be fun to see what people cook up with Barbarians this season. Throwing Mastery has had its Pierce fixed, and the Critical Strike bonus has been increased from 1.5 to 2x. Warcry has had its radius increased by roughly 15%. Taunt has had its radius increased by 25% to better match the visual part of it. And the speed of the taunt visuals are increased as well. Over to the Druid. Fury, like I announced earlier, has had the same changes done to it as Fend. It now adds the splash bonus, actually adds it instead of not adding it. Arctic Blast has had its base cold pierce increased from -2 to -5%, and the cold pierce is no longer capped at 50%. It's now 100% uncapped. Twister has, well, it's had a change last season where it reduces gust cooldown by 0.25 seconds. It's now been increased to 0.5 seconds. The level scaling from 22 to 28 has been increased by, what is that? Like 20%. A big change to Twister here, which is already a very strong skill. And as you see, the same goes for Tornado. The same change with the gust cooldown applies, and there's a lot of scaling here that's been increased. So Wind Druid even stronger, and it was already very strong. So I am definitely gonna blow some mobs this season. Cyclone Armor has also gotten a change. Both Twister and Tornado has been added as synergies, granting 10 additional elemental damage absorbed per level. So if you are in fact a wind build, you will have a very strong Cyclone Armor to go with it. So you'll be tankier and you'll be doing more damage. And you'll be reducing your cooldown for Gust even more. Amazing news for the Windy boys. Spirit of Barbs has been reworked and now grants 8% Deadly Strike and an extra 1% per 2 soft points. It now grants 1% maximum Deadly Strike per 4 base points. So if you have 20 points in it, you get 5% extra maximum Deadly Strike. And you will have a lot of Deadly Strike on it as well. So it's actually viable now. It's an alternative to Heart of the Wolverine, which has been nerfed by a small amount. 2% per level, both for enhanced damage and attack rating. So this is a choice you'll have to make now. Either you can use Spirit of Barbs or you can use Heart of the Wolverine if you are a physical build. Ravens has been renamed to Summon Ravens, which makes sense. It's the only skill in that tree that doesn't have the name Summon in front of it. So finally, it's homogenized. The maximum Raven limit is now increased every second level instead of every level, which at least very early on makes a lot of difference. The Ravens now deal cold damage only instead of 50-50 cold and physical damage. The base damage has been reduced by half, and the synergies has been reduced from 10% to 8%. So an overall quite significant nerf to Summon Ravens, which is justified. It was just way too strong and has been so for a long time. So you gotta start pushing your buttons, Druids. Volcano has also gotten a significant nerf. The base damage has been decreased for the minimum damage all the way through the levels, and the synergies has been reduced by 1%. Armageddon has had a new synergy added in Fireclaw, which gives a 5% synergy. Molten Boulder and Volcano synergies has been reduced from 12 to 10%. and apparently the synergies didn't apply to the fire damage over time, so that has been fixed. Overall, this is a nerf, I would say. I don't see many people actually speccing into Fireclaw to get the full damage from Armageddon. I could be wrong. On to the Necromancer. So, strongest class in the game by far. So many S tier builds. Let's see what has been changed. Desecrate has had its synergies increased from 20 to 22%, and the mana cost reduced. So Desecrate, which is a very strong bossing build, has gotten a slight buff. Skeleton mages have had their high level damage scaling increased, and was a bug with the skeleton mastery synergies not displaying. It's now displayed, so buff to skeleton mages. Corpse Explosion has had its maximum radius reduced by roughly 12%, and given that it's a very, very strong build, this is not going to affect it by that much. But most of the S tier builds here have had no changes. So let's move on to the Paladin. We have Seal again. The same goes for Seal as for Fend and Fury. The splash bonus finally applies, and it's been increased. Sacrifice has had its maximum radius reduced by 16%. This again, the second time in a row we've had nerfs to Sacrifice, and honestly, having played all the different kinds of Sacrifice last season, all 5 of them it must be, I'll put those at number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5 mapper for a Paladin. So yeah, it's fine that it's been reduced slightly. Fist of the Heavens has been reworked so that the projectiles have a 20% faster speed, and they now accelerate, causing them to increase in speed as they travel further on the screen. This is a slight mechanical difference to Fist of the Heavens, which is a needed change, but I don't think this changes too much about how Fist of the Heavens feels at the highest end. It's still not quite there. Resist Lightning, Fire, and Cold Aura has had its elemental bonuses increased from 1% to 2% at level 22 plus. So if you, for some reason, are using these as your main aura, they now have a tiny amount of more damage. Vengeance has had its level 1 chain chance increased from 16 to 24%, so it starts with 24% and goes up from there. Cleansing has had its base curse resistance increased from 5 to 10%. This is not the biggest change. Nobody's running Cleansing. The only change I see is for Plague, which has Cleansing on there. So slight buff to Plague. And the Sorceress. Again, we have some lightning skills that's been reworked in terms of minimum damage. This goes for lightning and chain lightning. Significant increases in minimum damage there. Inferno has had the same change happen as was the case for Arctic Blast. The Fire Pierce is now minus 5% at base and no longer caps at 30% with a uncapped max Pierce now. Static Field, same change. It's now minus 5% base, and the Lightning Pierce no longer has a cap. Firewall has been completely reworked in terms of damage scaling. We haven't seen the numbers yet for this, so this is definitely something I'm gonna I'm gonna test, because, well, Firewall, in my opinion, is very nice early on, but now the damage will be significantly lower at early game and similar at end game, is what we've been told so far, which is kind of a shame, because Firewall is not really a very popular end game build. At least it can't really map. You can boss with it if you want to, but since the damage now is lower, I don't know, it's a significant change that is going to affect the Sorceress for a playthrough on Firewall. The base mana cost has been reduced, which is alright, because it was very expensive. So it's now 15 instead of 22, and the scaling for mana costs has also decreased a bit. Hydra, as we've talked about earlier, this now pierces. So your Hydra shoots through everything and has a chance to hit the targets behind it as well. As a result of that, the AoE has been reduced. We have no numbers for how much, but we are gonna have to test that during the closed beta. Nova has had a completely reverse change compared to the other lightning skills, since it has pretty high minimum damage already. It's had its minimum damage reduced significantly. So Nova will now feel more random than it did before. And radius has also been slightly reduced. Second season in a row. Frost Nova has also got its radius slightly reduced. So, F Nova, enjoy us. Charge Bolt, again, it was a lightning skill that had pretty decent minimum damage. The scaling from the minimum damage has now been reduced from level 16 and above by quite a lot. Fire Enchant has had its damage increased, so memers rejoice. Same goes for Cold Enchant, so dual enchant Sorc, definitely stronger and stronger for every season. Telekinesis has had the same change done with the minimum damage, a lot more minimum damage on it now, so maybe Telekinesis is a decent single target skill now. We are gonna have to test with it as with everything else. Alright, so that's it for the changes to the classes. Tomorrow I will make a video about the item changes. There's quite a lot in there and some very radical changes, so you can look forward to that. Until then, have a nice night and take care of yourselves. Peace.